Welcome to On the Chain. This is Chip. What's up, OTC family? We have a special guest here. It is none other than from To the Lifeboats. It is Sam I Am. Sam, what's going on tonight?
Hey, not much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Great to have you back. It seems like it's been a while since you were back on the show, but you are, I think you're still one of our most frequent guests on the show. But we're going to jump into a lot of different things. Going to get some takes on Flare, Songbird. We're going to talk about decentralization. We're going to talk about some geopolitical pressures, future of XRP, Ripple. We're going to throw it all in there, but the kitchen sink. And we're about to get started. Let's do this. You ready, Sam?
I'm ready. Wait, where's Jeff?
Oh, Jeff is going to be away. Jeff is going to be
He
away
secretly
tonight.
hates me, doesn't he?
Not at all. No. He actually has meetings. Late last night, he's like, "Oh crap! I forgot. I got these meetings going on all day tomorrow." So that's where he is. So he's out, man. So we're gonna talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up, guys. Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
There you go. That's great. So that's why it's nice having someone else here, so you can do like the, you don't want to have. Although Jeff and I had like about 20 seconds, I go, I'm waiting for him to talk. He's waiting for me to talk. Nobody's talking. I'm like, we can't have dead air. There's two of them. For that. Hey, before we get started, I just want to give a big shout out to the permission.io. They're sponsoring this video today, and permission.io, you're out there, big tech is tracking you, monetizing off of your back, making all kinds of money, and you don't see much of it. So you get hit with the ads, you get hit with the videos, all the stuff that you come in contact with. Permission.io allows you to earn the ASK token, ASK, get it, Ask Permission. Real easy. You sign up, you basically say what you want to share with them, and you basically install the browser plugin. Takes about 5 minutes. You can engage with some videos. They'll send some stuff to you, and then you engage, and it's probably the easiest way to earn cryptocurrency. The link is down below, something you can share with people that are like, I don't know about crypto. Well, great. Do this. Put this browser plug in because you're already doing it, except now you're not making money. So anyway, shout out to permission.io. Thank you very much. Sam, there's a lot to unpack here, man. I mean, where do we want to get started? There's so much going on.
It's up to you, man. You're driving it.
All right, let's go with this. First of all, Gary Gensler, chairman of the SEC, out of nowhere joins Twitter today. And last time I checked, he has like 43,000 followers. What's that all about? Is he interested in what people are thinking out there, or is he just?
They're. I think they opened a can of worms, and they didn't. They probably knew that they were going to do it. Now they're seeing that it comes with a lot of bad PR. And what I suspect is that he's coming out to kind of repair the image of the SEC and get their side of the story out, that sort of thing. They've got such defects in their arguments in their case against Ripple, in a lot of the actions that they've taken and failed to take at the same time over the years. It's they don't have a great reputation when it comes to crypto. And now they're talking about, I don't know if it was the SEC or somebody else, but with governance token holders, they're going to have to be like responsible for their system is failing, is the way kind of I look at it. And what really caught my attention in the last couple of weeks was hearing Eric Voorhees took his company and decentralized it and basically did away with it. One of the things that I've been kind of paying attention to over the years is this idea of these self-organizing collectives. And I think a lot of what we have today, the business world as it exists today, with corporations and sole proprietorships and LLCs and all these things, those are all government creations, right? So the workplace and the tax code and all that stuff has all evolved at the behest of the state, right? And it's not necessarily what's in our best interest. It was what's in their best interests. And I think now we have DeFi coming along. We have stateless permissionless money coming along, and the ability to create complex contractual agreements that decentralized oracles are providing the data for to trigger events and so forth. and that we don't need this trusted third party anymore. And like I always knew that was coming, that one day we would see DeFi just swallow up finance. I didn't think it would happen as fast as it's happening. And that's what catches my attention. Like, and going back to Gensler coming out on Twitter, it's PR. It's PR control in my mind. They're trying to improve the narrative here a little bit.
We got to be a little bit careful when we say he came out on Twitter. Be like, well, he's now on Twitter. It's like whoa. It's like, hang on a second. Let's not. If you're just joining us right now, let's not get the wrong idea. But this is what kind of has me a little bit like. So he doesn't really have the nomenclature down either. It's like, if you have any interest in investor protection, right? I mean, why? I mean, if you're at the SEC, you would think that might be. Listen, if you're sitting around, you notice that I'm on Twitter, you have any interest in investor protection or in fair and orderly and efficient markets, do not. He says, then shoot me a follow. About delete? How about tweet me, delete my account? Because apparently investor protection or fair and orderly and efficient markets, not really the strong suit going on there, right? I mean, it seems to be a little bit on the lacking side right there. And he's hey, a little bit about myself. I'm a dad of 3, avid runner, hiker, 33rd chair. And hey, if you have any interest in investor protections, what's up with that?
These organizations are captured, in my view. I mean, I think Clayton was by the CCP. Who knows how or what somebody's got on him, but that's why this thing was dropped on his way out the door. And we've had this. I think I already have, or I hope I already have, when he's talking about giving clarity and just a complete buffoon year after year after year, not doing what he says. And then all of a sudden, after 7 years of nothing, now they're clearly engaged in selling unlicensed securities. And I love that pomp.
The pomp, yeah. It's funny that he ends up
caught up in BlockFi with that comment about how he was attacking Ripple for doing that, and he's doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, it was kind of fun because John Deaton hammered him on that. He goes, hey, remember when you said good morning to everyone except for those who bought unregistered securities? Yeah. And I try to educate you a little bit about why this is an attack on all crypto. But, and I think Deaton said this. He said, you'd have more credibility if you say, you know what, kind of stepped in that. You're kind of right. I didn't see it at that time. But, now looking back, I kind of see it in a different light. No. There's like not even any like admission of like not even like the slightest, like, you know what, I didn't read that right. Just nothing. Totally ignore it. And I think you'd get more credibility. It's kind of like when I was down at Bitcoin 2021, right? So I run into Tone Bays, right? So it's like, and he's really good buddies with a good friend of mine. So I snap a picture, I put it up on there, and people are like, did you hammer him? Did you tell him about XRP? I'm like, no, man. He was cordial enough. I talked to, hey, my buddy, but yeah. And then he's the Bitcoin maxi that got me in. And people were like, in a chance meeting, right? You just kind of hit him and he was cool. He's like, hey, you want to grab a picture? Yeah, let's do that. And he was real nice. Tell me about you. What do you do? But nothing like the persona you see. But now's not the time to launch into like sucker punching. It's not what he's there for. It's like sometimes you got to realize where you're at and judge it based on that. Yeah, in another setting, I probably would have said something. But no, he was cool enough to just snap a photo. And people are like, I can't believe you didn't say anything. It's like, well,
yeah. You should have gone for the juggler.
Well, he was like, it was like in passing. He was hanging with a bunch of people. He was doing his thing, and I was like, I'm not going to get into it now but that would have been fun if you just turn on the camera and start filming it.
I've had more than one person tell me that the influencers are part of the pump and dump mechanism that is Bitcoin. And I tweeted something out about Tether coming apart at the seams all of a sudden now, and the Bitcoin maxis are still over there. Oh, it's not story, bro. Come on. And it's just so foolish. Well, the original whistleblower from 2017, it's the Bitfinex account on Twitter. He direct messaged me and started telling me some of the things. He's like, yeah, there's a group of about 6 or 8 of these whales. They've got the resources. They're involved with Tether. They're plugged into this little network that they have going on. And when you find out, when you discover them, they'll offer to feed you some tips, tell you the next buy and sell points, or try and pay you off to keep quiet. And he refused and became, is the reason we know about it and triggered the New York Times story and so forth. And he was explaining all that. That's what happened to him once he uncovered all of this stuff. So.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with volunteer. If you're volunteering for the firing squad, not the people holding the guns, right? So you kind of still have to make yourself a target. And hey, out of curiosity, so there's been a lot in the community recently with regard to Flare, the launching of Flare, now the announcement of Songbird, and the fact that there's going to be a 15% one-time distribution to really. I mean, you being a tech guy, I think would really understand the whole reason they've got to make sure they get this right. But what are your thoughts on that whole thing and people's attitudes are like, I'm like, look, it's a drop, man. It's not like, and they're like, it's a scam.
Yeah. So I watched an interview with Hugo talking about it, and what he's saying makes sense. They're very careful. They want to do it right. To me, if anything, it should be interpreted as just a sign that these guys are patient. They're not in a hurry. They're trying to, launch this thing without getting hacked or, any kind of critical security flaws, that sort of thing. So they've created this test net. Now, I don't understand. There's some more technical things that you can do apparently on Songbird that you won't be able to do on Flare. I don't know all the specifics of that yet, but it makes sense that they want some kind of test net with some kind of value attached to it, so that people will participate in the ecosystem, but it's not, the main stage kind of thing. To me, that just says, yeah, they're thinking ahead and they're building an ecosystem here, and all the tools and things that they need to support it. And it should also be a sign of how much interest there is in Flare and what they're doing, and the difference, I talk about Monero and XRP, kind of Bitcoin versus XRP, and Monero and XX coin, because it switches from proof of work to this CMIX protocol and thing that they've kind of come up with. I see the same kind of thing between Ethereum and Flare. They've got the base layer one problem solved. That's what all these proof of work chains don't. And, you could say what you want about the momentum that Bitcoin and Ethereum or any other insert favorite project here has currently, and how much attention, and look at the developer community, whatever it is, the Ethereum Foundation, and so forth. In the real world, there's this store called Walmart, and people shop there because it's efficient and it's the cheapest, and you can get in and out fast, and they have most of the things that you need. And so that suggests, given that that's like the largest corporation in the US, suggests that people value efficiency and are price sensitive. And those networks, they can't have both, because layer one doesn't scale. And at some point, the market can be wrong for a lot longer than we think. And this, like Michael Burry was talking about the housing market years ahead of time. He knew it was coming, but the can kept getting kicked down the road. I think that's happening to some extent today, but at some point, somebody's going to figure out something novel enough, and it's going to have all of the, kind of the bells and whistles that are needed to start people migrating over to a platform that has solved these problems without compromising somewhere else.
I mean, to me, it's a natural evolution, right? Bitcoin, people ought to, there's that old saying, you always remember the man who dug the well. It made it possible for the waters flowing, and people forgot about the person that actually made that happen. So Bitcoin has that name recognition, but then, you have XRP, they fixed some of the things. And the problem with something like a Bitcoin is that the Lightning Network isn't it, right? It's a complete, everything around there is disaster, side chains, all this other stuff that they're building. If you can't go back and engineer and fix the tech, then you're always going to be putting band-aids on it. And that's what I like about the whole idea of Flare. I mean, when was the last time a project was launched that's on so many out of the gate? It launches and it's on all these exchanges, right? And to me, I'll just say, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say, I think that's part of their brilliance is their market, their bootstrapping strategy for their network. They got by doing the giveaway, they immediately had attention from all the XRP holders, or a large swath of the community. Those people went and pressured the exchanges. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll get the server fine and put it in. And so like the whole thing, the way they did it, other projects would have been smart to copy that. And I imagine we'll see some other projects maybe doing the same thing on other tokens and so forth. It was such a smart move. And I think that's why they're in the position they are today. They know, I think when they launch, there's going to be a lot of interest, attention, people trying to use it, trying to stake and do all of the things that you can do over there. And they just want to get it right is kind of how I look at it.
I totally agree. I mean, the legitimacy of what they're doing. I mean, beyond all the crypto Twitter trolls. Look, somebody who's really seriously thinking about the future wants to get it right. They don't want to go out there as, this is Flare, we launched it, and then they get hacked. And the whole idea of the testnet doesn't make sense because you can spin up any value, any coin you want, but it's not in reality. So it doesn't attract hackers, doesn't attract people that want to break the network. But you start having some real value, start staking. Look at Flare Finance. They're ready to go, and they're already adapting and getting ready for Songbird. And so I almost think that, to me, maybe I'm overblowing this a little bit, but I think this is going to be one of the biggest things. I think it might take a lot of people by surprise, not necessarily the XRP community, but when you go after the most passionate community that doesn't let shit slide, then you're playing on a whole different level, on a whole different field. So when they came out with Songbird, I started wondering, man, what if there's some screw ups early on? What if they delay it? It's not a matter. They said they would release it when it was ready. This, to me, makes like the most sound approach. Break everything you can. Go in the store, break it all, see what you can mess up. And if there's a value to the token, don't worry. They're going to show up too. Those clever people who like to go in and hack and figure stuff out, and they'll be able to see the vulnerabilities. But I think it's a phenomenal. I think it's going to be great. I do think it's going to be a game changer. Now, the thing is it going to be Ethereum 2.0? There will be some sort of interoperability between the two. But this ecosystem, like Sparkles, is that NFT platform. They built a platform where there's going to be stuff we're not even dreaming about that'll come out next year and the year after. We're not thinking about now. And I think that's the real genius behind the whole thing. And also, you said fast and efficient. You know what? At the height of when you had all these ERC20 coins that were going out of control and all these gas fees, you're thinking, wouldn't it have been nice if Flare launched? You would know immediately. Because right now, as the congestion starts coming down, the gas fees change, and people have short-term memories. And they're like, oh, did that happen? I don't remember that. I guess it's fine. Don't worry. They'll fix it.
They haven't. I think Cardano is also there's a lot of off ramps forming around Ethereum of people trying to kind of sway the travelers into their ecosystem and capture that and have them be based out of there. And I think Cardano is doing that. I think they're doing it successfully. I like what they're doing. I think Flare's taken on some aspects of that as well. I don't know how it's all going to shake out, but again, those fundamentals matter at the end of the day, and it may take a while to get there before the market kind of realizes, oh, this is a better way to go about it. But I think eventually it will.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that too. And I wanted to read this one comment here. Somebody was Hans Loaded says Jungle's in the house. He actually put up a great comment that I'm trying to find here. It's one of the things I don't like about the software, trying to find it. But he said,
I'll tell you, Jungle and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and he was asking me about the lawsuit. And I said, when you have commissioners on the panel writing letters against the SEC, it's game over already. Like they've lost. It just hasn't been acknowledged yet.
Yeah, right there. It says your studio is sick right there. So it is pretty cool. He came on. I was like, man, this is like dark against light here. What's going on? I'm looking at a bright studio here. You got all the lights flipped on, and But yeah, I do think you're right. Well, to me, I don't know. I mean, I kind of have a different. You kind of seeing the way this is going. That was dumped last year because they try to settle. I mean, Garlinghouse came out about the SEC, said, "Hey, we believe me, we tried to settle, and there's going to be a difference of opinion, some butting of heads. You've got two different camps. They live in two different worlds, and you got a strong arm, of Clayton, who's like, we're going to do it this way, and probably wanted to fine him and let's get this over with. And they're like, well, what's the point, man? You can just you can hit us a month from now, 2 months from now, 5 months from now. There's not going to get any clarity. Not the same as an ICO. ICO was open and closed. This kick case are like, well, it's like the kick case. No. They sold an unregistered security. That was pretty cut and dry, right? I mean, they didn't get any clearance. But I almost think this was dropped to kick it down to the next administration and watch them fumble around and watch them try to figure it out. And are you a little bit surprised that the two people who came out on the 14th, which is Crypto Mom, Hester Pierce, and Roisman, it's weird their political affiliation is counter to the chairman's, right? I mean, it's nothing to see there though, Sam, right? Just one of those coinky dinks, those coincidences. It sort of just happened randomly by throwing the shot over there,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, what are you suggesting by that?
Well, I'm suggesting that there's a lot of infighting going on there. Hester Pierce floated this interesting idea. It was a year ago. I think it was maybe in February of 2020. This whole safe harbor, and it was cool. It was like, hey, you got 3 years to start your project. Come out with a decentralized coin, prove that it's decentralized, completely hands off, and great. That way we can let the innovation happen. And not only was that shot down by the previous chair, this chair got no adoption. You see a bunch of, hey, look at us. We got some ideas over here. And Gensler goes straight to, what we got to do this year? We have to go out to the exchanges, right? And then all of a sudden, here comes a letter from Warren. His pal calls up Warren. Hey, can you write me a letter? I mean, do you think Senator Warren knows anything about a rug pull? I don't think it's in her vocabulary. I'll be honest with you. I just don't see it happening,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It seems a little too planned there.
I think the biggest thing happening in crypto right now is what's going on with Tether and the DOJ investigation into the executives. And I mean, reading some of the stuff that he was pointing to and telling me about, it's basically organized crime running Tether. And a lot of the inflows that came in, over from Tether in this massive balance sheet expansion after it was admitted that they lost hundreds of millions of dollars in these shell companies that they were parking money with all around the world. Several of those where they lost 450,000 here, 950 over there, another 650 back there. It's like, oops, they haven't gotten that money back. Those were supposedly what was left of the reserves. And there's talk that maybe some illicit drug money from cartels or whatever is coming into this Tether organization and being converted into Bitcoin. So,
I thought that was a known fact. I thought they started buying in right around 9,000, right? So a lot of that, I mean, that goes into a free fall, and you're just going to tank Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, I think that's what I asked Crypto Whale this. I want to get his opinion on it, but I think you could see Bitcoin really spike because the early people who know the jig's up, what are they going to immediately do? They're going to sell their Tether reserves into anything that they can, probably Bitcoin, since it's going to be most liquid. So then you'll see this huge spike, and then the peg on Tether will break, and people won't want it for 10,000 to 1.
But how many missteps do you get, right? So early days of Tether, remember they were backed by fiat, right? That was the first thing. Then fiat, maybe some precious metals, maybe gold, but fiat, other things, they said that on their balance sheet they had other things, potentials. And so to me, I guess the big shocker for me is what took them so long. But given the fact that it's been 8 years with the SEC v Ripple, it just seems like they were pretty slow on the draw when a lot of this is well known. Or look, you let people hang themselves. You collect all the data, let people think they're just doing their thing, and then you ride in. You got years full of documented sort of things happening.
I mean, I don't know. There's definitely people behind the scenes that know what's happening there, and like why the New York AG settled with them. I think that was to kind of transition to go after the executives. It's what's it? I think it has the potential to really tank the crypto market in the short term. I think the long-term prospects don't change, but as this comes out and people realize Tether's the biggest Ponzi in the history of the world, bar the Federal Reserve, right? People are going to be, it's going to be devastating to the crypto markets. I think that'll be the last great buying opportunity before we see it take off from there. It's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, exactly. And we famously, Brad Garlinghouse said that 99% of cryptos will fail, right? He came out and said that. He sort of had that sort of take on it. I'm starting to think he's probably not too far off, that we're starting to see. And the other separation we'll see is versus, the meme coins and this coin and this, everything you can do just to throw something out there to see if you're going to get any adoption versus real utility. Because in the end, real utility is going to win out. It's not going to be maybe the short-term gains, when you start seeing some of these coins rise and you're like, well, look at this and check out, they keep going up a couple levels. And but long-term, I don't think they really have any. And then of course, a lot of it has to do with, it's weird that the United States, out of all the countries, really is one of the few that doesn't have solid regulation around the whole cryptocurrency blockchain world, where you have it in the UK, you have it all throughout, pretty much through Europe. The one place you can go to is Asia, because they've had it. They've seen it for the longest time. Even Australia's playing in the game, and you go to Singapore, it's like they have it figured out, but there's just the one. And you kind of like, is there something really behind that, Sam? Like, what else is going on there? You've got the SWIFT system, you got the Federal Reserve, you got Ripple coming out saying they're going to take them out. And then you've got the Fed, which, I say US government, that says, hey, we can stop a bad actor. And who's the bad actor? Who a centralized system calls a bad actor. That's who it is. So this whole idea of decentralization, I think the biggest fear is it's on its way out. And they're kind of seeing glimpses of it, but I think it's happening way too fast, and they're going to be the last ones to figure it out.
Yeah, not only is our fiat money systems on their way out, but like the establishment hasn't what's the word, acknowledged that fact or come to terms with that reality yet. So in their minds, no, the people are going to accept this CBDC, and they probably will in the short term. And then when it starts hyperinflating, just like the Bolivar Fuente, the strong dollar in Venezuela, that they just, we'll just knock a decimal place off here, move the digits over, and then we fixed all the problems because it's the strong dollar. I mean, that's how, and that didn't work either. That's how it's going to go. That's how these monetary systems die. But I think everybody's in the governments is now like, aha, weakness, we can come in, swoop up. We'll be China's, wants to be the dollar reserve currency, and they're heading in that direction. But I think, what they don't see is the freight train coming from the left over there that is crypto and DeFi, and a further decentralized society that, going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, what does a company or an organization look like nowadays in a world where the state is, has ceased to function, really, because the only way they can function in the capacity that they have today, that they do today, is by being able to print dollars, take the wealth from all the existing dollar holders, put them in the new dollars, and sell them on the open market. You can't do that with crypto. So what happens? Well, they either run out of money and cease to function, or they have to start scaling back. And they're not going to have any choice, is It's kind of how I see it, and it's coming faster than I thought it would.
Yeah, one thing Jeff talks about often is the pendulum, right? The pendulum swings, and as it starts gaining momentum, if you turn it too hard one way, it swings back even harder the other way. And I think that's really where I will say this whole orchestrated scenario that's happened over the last course, so let's say the last 13 to 15 months, that sort of woke some people up and saying, hey, that's kind of weird. My fiat money is like buys less. And then when they come out and say there's no inflation, Sam, it's just a pigment of your imagination. It's all really starting to get better. But meanwhile, the food price is rising. Every time I go get gas, it costs more. And so you have your money sitting in a bank account that's worth less tomorrow than it is today. And people are like, hey, how do I hedge against that? Yeah, I could go buy gold, silver, but what else is out there? And I think that's really the big win for digital assets.
It's also very predictable. You buy anything at the store that you can store and that won't go bad. So laundry detergent, and that creates another wave of shortages when the normies realize, holy crap, inflation's out of control. I might as well buy that extra can of or jug of laundry detergent now rather than pay 3 times as much for it next month when I need it. Right. And this is what Michael Burry came out to warn everybody about, that like that's one of the warning signs. And we're still seeing these shortages all around. And, today it was American Airlines was cautioning pilots to try and conserve fuel because there's a jet fuel shortage. And I took and like deconstructed Biden's town hall, where I just kind of watched it and gave my off the cuff response. Well, he's in one sentence telling this business owner that, well, hey, maybe the new normal is $15 an hour. You might just have to start paying that now to get the people that you want, because that's the problem here and that's the solution. And then in a couple sentences later, he's telling them that the inflation is temporary, that it's going to go back down and everything will be back like it was before. Well, how do you do that if you're paying double the wages? That doesn't work out. So it can't be temporary. There's so much evidence out there that shows, no, this is not temporary. This is not going away. And now what we're seeing in some of the data, like the housing sales came out, that market is so overheated that buyers are being pushed out because they can't afford it. Right. So it's the rich, are the only ones that are able to go out and buy up all the assets and so forth. The whole thing is just, the narrative's falling apart. There are warning signs to kind of where this is going, and I hope people are paying attention to them. Like I watched a video that I tweeted about some guy that I think his sons are in the military or something like that. He's got family in the military, and they're telling the officers, get your houses in order, make sure your family has everything they need at home, food and water wise, that sort of thing, which suggests, maybe this shit's about to hit the fan. Is it election stuff? Is it another set of lockdowns? Is it something else? War? Who knows? It could be any of those things. Is it hyperinflation? I mean, that seems a very real possibility. So before the end of the video, I had ordered another 48 cans of tuna. They just got here today, so they're over there in the kitchen.
Well, it's a supply chain, man. That's the other thing too, is like, they had a pre-organized activity drill right before the actual drill happened. And then now they're doing the supply chain. I'm being cautious, but you know what I'm talking about. So now they're like, well, what happened if the supply chain got hit? It's like, you always kind of tell you what they're going to do before they actually pull the trigger on it or attempt to pull the trigger on it. Yeah. So as they started going down that road, it's like, well, because it didn't really work out so well when they started attacking, some of the early so-called trying to make Bitcoin look bad by saying, look at these attacks. And meanwhile, you're like, wait a minute, you had the keys how, and you recovered it how? How about you understand and learn a little bit about how digital assets work, how Bitcoin works? You didn't just randomly find the keys to the wallet, right? Because that's what, it's one thing to be a criminal and, you rob a bank. Okay, you can make silly mistakes. You don't randomly leave the keys to a cold storage wallet just on the internet, just for the hell of it. To me, that one, all of a sudden, that quick change that narrative. Whoops, blew that one. There was a couple of those, the pipeline got hit, and then you're like, wait a minute, what I've really noticed, Sam, is that people are really, especially I look in this community, people are really awake. They're not sitting back going, oh yeah, whatever, eating the pablum and shoving it in their mouth. They're going, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't pass the sniff test. Something isn't right here, right? And that's one of the things that I think in this acceleration that happened over the last 15, 16 months, that's where the pendulum swung back the other way. We're like, okay, you get that, but we will raise you with this. And you look at just somebody put a picture out there of all the major cities across Europe and even in Australia. People aren't down for it anymore. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, okay, listen. Then you get really angry when you keep them locked up in their houses for over a year.
Yeah, you hit this point. This is something Cliff High talks about. 1% to 3% of the population has to understand what's wrong or what the problem is, and it reaches critical mass. And I think we've done that with what's happening with the medical front, what's happening with the electoral front. All of those things are kind of coming to a head, and they are doing their best to use their existing tools, but they've eroded so much trust and been caught out so many times and exposed by social media that they've had to resort to, these channel deletings and so forth, where it's a digital book burning. They're going back and rewriting history. Nope, there were no objections to that. Nobody knew. How could we have possibly known? Look, nobody was even talking about it. That's what's happening. And people don't understand the danger that we're in right now. We are the evil empire trying to take over the world, not in the same way the Nazis did, but doing the exact same thing through the drug war, through the foreign aid that's really just bribes to the political class and keeping them in power. And the five, you mentioned the five countries that had their leaders assassinated because they all had a certain viewpoint, and right afterwards they get, they're back on board with the whole program, right? And it's it's obvious there's an agenda here, and there's so many things coming to a head. I think it's very important that people are paying attention, know what the warning signs are, and do their best to prepare in whatever way they can.
Let's talk a little bit about SEC v. Ripple, right? So we know this has been going on, it was dropped last December, but we've seen some missteps, obviously, by the SEC. We talked a little bit about it, right? Some of the things, so maybe the sabotaging going on there. But I want to get your thoughts on where are we now? Where do you see this going? And what do you see it opening up for the future? I mean, you see this becoming a Ripple test?
I think that would be the ideal outcome, is that they have some kind of, well, no, not the ideal. That may be the best case that we can hope for out of the government system, is that we get some kind of Ripple test, some kind of new classification. Of course, you got the Bearable Guy stuff that showed the books were all disheveled on the top shelf, and in the new one, they're perfectly aligned, and two of them are overlapping. And I think there was some announcement along those lines that two of the agencies were kind of aligning what they were doing. I think this process, I think what Ripple's intention is to get that kind of clarity, so they settle the question once and for all, because they've been stuck in limbo for years now, and the rest of the market and DeFi is growing up all around them, and they're facing more competition for what they do, I think, than they have in a long time. They're still, I think, probably the most respected on the block. I think the SEC's case, I think at this point, they're probably, my gut is that they're trying to find a way to gracefully exit. And I don't know that Ripple's going to let them do that. I wouldn't if I were them. So
yeah, I've taken
and
that same right where with you. I'm like, look, when you've got them in your grips, man, you pummel them to the ground, you take them for all the way down, and you know, show no mercy because hey, if you're the one to engage, and I said this when the case was dropped, it was super weak, and then they made a tragic mistake going. Why would you even bother going after Garlinghouse and Larson? It's a fool's folly right there. I mean, it makes no sense. They didn't charge them with fraud. They're like, oh. And meanwhile, let people like Arthur Brito and let's say Jed McCaleb, who stopped for a period of time, surprisingly, then started dumping again. It's almost as if, and I brought this up last night about, let's see, the same guy. Tell me this again: the same guy from Mount Gox, who was the only one that didn't go to prison. Interesting. How did that work out? And then
who had the private keys,
right? Had the private.
Like, signed the document that said, well, I can't be responsible, and they didn't change them. And then the hack happens and it disappears and he knows nothing, of course.
No. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's going along with his schedule of when he can dump because, you know, they took him back into court and said, hey, you can't dump it all at once, too much market fluctuations. And all of a sudden he stopped for a period of time. So you're almost wondering, it's like, there's something going on in the background there. It seems all too bizarre. The original guy, I mean, Garlinghouse came in 2015. I mean, that's I guess the shocker. I mean, yeah, it was part of his compensation, but then they made it all about his, you know, I'm long on XRP. Well, of course he is. But when you're part of your compensation package is in XRP, well, you know, you want to do stuff in life. You're not going to hold it off till one day. So to me, that whole thing was it's a little bit fishy and thin.
I disagree with you. I think, the wrongdoing in this case probably falls most on the shoulders of Brad and a little bit on
Well, tell me why though.
Well, because Brad was going around saying that he's long XRP and long Bitcoin.
Okay.
When in reality he was selling half of his XRP and buying Bitcoin with it and moving into cash. At the same time, he's going out and making claims like major bank using XRP by the end of 2018. And that major bank was not a major bank. It didn't even have a branch. Like, let's get real. They're working with tier one banks. He's out there setting the expectation that they'll have a major bank using XRP by the end of the year. And that didn't happen. People bought in and they got less XRP as a result, and that cash went into Brad's pocket. So
right, but that's what
my argument is. I have the biggest problem with Brad because I think what he did is shady as fuck.
Okay. Yeah. I listen, if you pay part of my compensation package and it's in a digital asset, that said digital asset might disappear or go into something else. It's a possibility, but I get your point there, and it's a well taken point of where, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have no problem with him diversifying against it. I have a problem with him not telling the whole story, saying I'm long XRP. Oh, technically that's correct, but when you're selling $150 million worth and telling people you're long and not telling them you're selling half your bag and moving it into a competing cryptocurrency, while making these positive statements about progress that the company's making towards adoption, I think that's kind of a big problem. Yeah, I have a huge problem with that.
And it also came out somewhere along the lines that in 2015, I think it was on a podcast that we watched, where Brad had mentioned the whole idea of the company behind Filecoin, that he may or may own a bunch of that, you know. So timing wise, it's interesting too, because he did invest in that. I forget the name of the parent company, but he did make a significant investment in that. And he did say that, yeah, he did disclose it because I think it came up in a conversation. Actually, I think it came up when Tony interviewed him. Tony from Thinking Crypto. I think he had said, hey, what kind of crypto do you own? And he kind of said, well, yeah, I sort of invested in that company type of thing, which, you know, was kind of like a forced confession, but more or less like, hey, better to be open and disclose stuff. But, you know, running a company and trying to do the right thing, create right expectations, you know, there's always the challenge of hopeful versus, you know, are you hopeful about something or are you calling something? And then, of course, too, not everything goes as planned. And unfortunately, I do feel though that overall Ripple has been a very transparent organization, and especially when they got fined as FinCEN, they fined them back in 2015, and they're getting audits and stuff. They stepped on a line, they got hit, and they went ahead and they manned up, they paid the fines, whatever. And you have the SEC.
They did, but then they went and entered into an agreement with MoneyGram where they're paying them in XRP and not disclosing that.
They did disclose that though.
They did after the SEC forced MoneyGram to add it to their quarterly reports, to their statements. Otherwise, they were not going to let that little fact slip out.
I think I had seen that they had gone to SEC, talked about the investment, and I thought they said that it was going to be paid in XRP, and we knew they weren't going to be. We'd immediately sell it on the secondary market. It's not like, oh, they're hodlers, they're going to hodl it forever. I mean, of course they're going to dump it. I mean, they were using it as.
But then they didn't report it in their XRP sales, right? And like that's another. They're talking about how transparent we are with what we're doing. They've got the XRP markets report. And they weren't putting tens of millions of dollars of sales of XRP that were going from them to MoneyGram, deployed as XRapid transactions and sold on the exchanges. They weren't disclosing that.
Okay, fair enough. But by the way, if it's your first time here, please like, subscribe, click that notification bell. I've got 730 people in here. And let's do this. Boom. There you go. Like, subscribe, click that notification bell.
And let me just say, I'm not on YouTube anymore, but I am still broadcasting to the lifeboats on Twitter,
Twitch,
Rumble, Twitch, DLive. I'm X tagged, so shadow banned on DLive, but I am there as well. So
yeah, and I've been watching you on Twitch, so that's where I usually see you. But also Rumble is a decent platform too. Although I did hear some rumblings that they did pull somebody off of there too. So it's I don't know that anything. I don't know if there's anything secure. Even on the Twitters, being up there. And sometimes that's where I'll see you broadcasting, and then I'll just go to Twitch because it's a better user experience. But what the hell is up with them updating every time I launch Twitch, which is every other day, it's like, oh, we got a new one. We got a new version. I'm like, I just updated, man. Chill out. You space them out a week.
They somebody reported my videos like 2 in a row, and they reviewed them, and because it happened in Germany, they had to send me a notification. And they said they found no terms of service, and I was going over some highly sensitive subjects, and I'm like, all right, thank you, Twitch, you're my hero today until you turn on me.
Until you're not, right? It's like, you're the hero until you're absolutely not. So let's talk a little bit about this whole idea that MoneyGram is there's a play behind the scenes with a private equity company and the Stellar Foundation that they're kind of like vying for that. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any
last I heard, and I think this came from Crypto Eddie. She was talking about MoneyGram was a broker in the deal, that it was this private equity firm that was interested. One of the reasons I don't like Stellar, and there's a lot of people, this was the last crypto question that I was going to take on the show. And then everybody piled in to answer the question and like, tell me how I'm wrong and this and that. And I'm just like, oh, fuck it. This is why you can't have crypto anymore. No. Tell me the question again. I got lost.
So the whole thing about Stellar. So one of the reasons I do not like Stellar. Yeah.
Okay. So there's this segment of the community that thinks XRP is going to be commercial, XLM is going to be retail, and the token for the people, and this and that. And a lot of it goes back to the whole Kendra Hill blog that she did years ago. And apparently she's back and selling clothes now or something. Stickers. I don't know. And the question that I got was really around, well, what if the government comes in and bans XRP, bans retail holders of XRP and forces everyone to use XLM, and it's this commercial only tool? I'm like, in what world are they able to do that? Right? There's always somewhere around the world that's not going to go along with that. And there will be DEXs out there in the world that will let you trade into any other asset. And we're going to have private smart contracts as well as privacy coins. So you can erase your tracks and walk into the creek, walk down as far as you want in either direction and walk back out, and they're going to be none the wiser. So, okay, good luck with that. But how do they do that? And at the same time, Ripple's built a product that depends on retail markets and open and free markets to exchange. They're building this liquidity engine tool to source liquidity from the exchanges through other tokens if necessary. So it was a non-starter for me. I don't see that happening. And what I see from Jed is like major ego, probably even more than me, if that's possible. He got he got kicked out of Ripple, I think, because he wanted to put his girlfriend in some position that she really wasn't qualified for, and that's when they had enough. And then the little back and forth petty things that I've seen, like, to me, it's almost like Stellar's involved to feed Jed's ego out of spite. That's what I think about it. I don't know, I could be totally wrong about that, but that's my opinion.
Then you have Stellar, like, they want to be everything to everyone. They want to do CBDCs. We are the ones doing CBDCs. We want to, and the one key thing that I picked up on when that whole MoneyGram and Ripple thing fell apart, you had their chief tech officer. They said, well, now that Ripple's no longer in the picture, you guys have kind of walked away from each other. Why don't you just replace it with something else? And he's like, there is nothing else. And the one part that people forget is the liquidity. That's the one thing that Ripple built, was that on-demand liquidity. Yeah, okay, you can get something from one place to another, but you need that liquidity, like you said, for retail to actually make it successful. Otherwise, it's just a cool product. If once it gets there, it has to do something, right? So if you're going to be able to be interoperable with whatever, digital assets, fiat currency, you need something there that's going to be there. And he said, man, well, what do you mean there's nothing else? There's this, or Stellar and all that. Because there's nothing. And, it takes time to build the rails, lay the foundation. And people just think, well, check it out, Sam. I'm going to send you something. I'm going to send you 100 XRP right now, and click, and you have it. Yeah, you have it. Okay, there's a lot more to it than that, right? Especially when you're talking to big custody stuff. So your thoughts on that? I mean, are they trying to be everything to everybody, or is it just they just don't have a real good?
I think they're trying to land their beachhead. So, and like for a long time that was IBM, right? And that's sort of like whatever came of that. Nothing that I really ever heard. It's like, well, we've got IBM's like that wants to sell servers. Okay. Anything else? I think they're looking for their beachhead, and like they have some little things going on, but they haven't found that critical one yet. And let's face it, there's a lot of crypto projects out there that can transfer money around and do it efficiently and in different ways. And I don't know. I hold a very small amount of Stellar. But it's not, I just don't see it. I could be completely wrong. These people could be right. It becomes retail money for all, and everyone lives happily ever after. But it's just, I don't see it that way because of the leadership of the company. Like, to me, that's such a huge red flag. I think that could end up getting in the way of their success.
Yeah, that could potentially happen. I've always had my doubts as well. I do think the new CEO they have, or the person who's running the Stellar Foundation, seems to be doing some right things and saying some of the right things. So I thought, and the same here. I own a lot less position than I once held. But what are your thoughts on some other digital assets? Let's just, things that have utility that you like, and not necessarily you own or not, but things that you kind of like or think have a shot at really kind of doing something.
I think Thorchain is still one that I really like. I don't hold any of it right now, but I need to. Okay. Or no, wait. I do. I just there's one. Atomic is the one that I sold out of, I think. But that's another one that I think both of those are doing things to replace exchanges. These exchanges are third-party intermediaries, right? And eventually they're going to be become more and more just fiat on and off ramps, is kind of my opinion, because that's the only reason you still need them. And if the dollar fails and we end up in hyperinflation, all bets are off, right? Like, would you ever want to go back to that, right? Like, I can hold real value that retains its wealth and appreciates a little bit over time, or this that's going to be worth this going to buy half as much next week. And so, you need it when you need to pay bills that require, dollar payments to the government. And of course, then they've lost all of their demand for the money because it's all moved to crypto, where you have sound money and lots of different variations and experiments on security, on token size, on underlying networks, and all these things. And the best sets of projects will survive. I saw this, I think it was Jessica Walker, she's one of the crypto reporters, blonde lady, was asking about, showed the panel that she was on with Tone Vays and some of the other maximalists, talking about is there the right balance to altcoins versus Bitcoin? What do you think? And I'm just like, imagine you guys are still talking about Bitcoin as if it's the only true cryptocurrency and all the others are somehow inferior altcoins. And I just likened it to saying that there was only one winner from .com. That's insane. There were several winners. There were several experiments going on, and the guys who had the best ideas generally ended up winning.
Yeah, I mean, said another way here, we basically, Jeff and I talk about it all the time. It's like, the stock market has one stock, and it's Apple, and that's it. Everything else is garbage, or it's, or it's whatever. It's Amazon. That's it. And it's like, when you start looking at it like that, you're like, come on, man, this is to the point of being absurd. I was going to ask you another question. I'm looking at the time here, and I'm like, wow, we're getting down to the end of it. We're getting down to the end of it here, man. We're having a good time here. And subscribe, click that notification bell. Anyway, I got to get that in there. But what are your thoughts on DeFi? What is DeFi a massive game changer? What do you see that, now that it's starting to come on full steam, especially with Flare coming out, especially with Flare Finance, the whole staking stuff, and the way that's even changing quickly. It used to be that if you were the first person that got in and a bunch of people came in, borderline Ponzi, right? I mean, it was kind of like someone ended up getting hurt holding the bag. Mm-hmm. Now it's starting to kind of find its legs. What kind of a game changer is DeFi? And what kind of effect do you see on that having, not only here in the US, but worldwide?
DeFi is going to replace the banks, without a doubt. There will still be some of the big banks that, are these relics that kind of survive. But I see a world where DeFi has a long ways to go as far as usability. And, it's still way too complicated for the normies and for the mainstream. But I think we're getting to the stage where it can be plugged into the back end, like Shapeshift, obviously what they're doing to some degree there. To where it can be plugged in by traditional finance to provide those services so they can control the bleeding, right? It doesn't stop the bleeding, because once people realize, oh, I don't need to pay you to do this, I can just do it myself, they're going to. You look at, I wrote the letter to the Federal Reserve when they were considering changing the KYC. No, what was it? The money reporting requirements from the current $3,000 to require ID, right? From $3,000 down to $200 or something like that. And of course, when that 3,000, if you adjust that for inflation, that was like 10,000 when they made the law. So they're going basically from 10,000, now probably 12,000, down to $200, and they want to go all the way down to zero. And I just laid it out for them and sent that in as an official request that they all have to read, which went to the board of governors at the Federal Reserve. And I'm sure they didn't like my matrix analogy at the end. But I mean, they're going to thrash around. They're going to come up with whatever they can to save themselves, but it's going to be as effective as the vaccination program. in my view. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna go over very well. I mean, I have to say there actually was a story about 2 weeks ago. It was a bank official at a Thailand bank, and he starts sounding the bell globally, saying we have to do DeFi now, right today, because it is going to wipe us out. And the funny thing is, it's kind of like he's that one person that's like screaming, and they're like, nut job, crazy person. And meanwhile, he's the only one that sees exactly what's going to happen. And he was largely ignored. And there was actually some commentary by other, central banks and everything. Oh, that's never going to happen. Well, then why are you rushing into CBDCs, right? By the way, the first part of that C word is not a good word. If you say like the C word, the whole centralized, we don't need more centralization. I mean, I would have even come up with a clever name for it. Like, may call it a real banker's coin, but you don't want to call it a CBDC, I think that's a losing process. What do you think about the CBDCs? Do they have a shot? Will they get adoption by the masses and the people? Or is it just another scam, programmable money scam to track people and work in social scores or whatever other potential things?
I think it's probably going to, I think we're going to see hyperinflation, and they're going to have to do something to fix the problem. Is that going to be they roll out a CBDC, they digitize the money, they disappear all of the statistics so we don't see how much money is being actually created anymore? They just, what was it? 700 sextillion coins that were in the Finastra patent for their CBDC system. Is they meant that, and then they just pull them out as they need them. And it's like they could literally, and they probably have been with the dollar and the Federal Reserve. There's rumors that like that's what's going on, that the money supply that we're told is grossly underreported compared to what it actually is. But they could literally have like full control. Oh, you shopped at this store and bought these things. We don't like that. I mean, look at all the censorship that's going on payment platforms. They want to do away with the commercial banks, replace them with the central banks. I mean, that's what we saw during the lockdown. As you had first was the kind of the deep state bill came out where they wanted the Federal Reserve to be in charge, and it had the requirement for Federal Reserve branding to be put on the bank's websites so that so that end users in their mind, they know, oh, this is Federal Reserve, not Chase Bank or not Bank of America. So they force them to advertise to their own customers. Like, how great would it be if you could force your competitors to advertise so you can undermine their business? The whole thing, though, could just be turned on its head by this freight train coming out of the left corner, right? By DeFi. And it's just, I don't know where it's going to end up, but I think we're heading for fireworks is kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, and I almost think it's a good show. It's like, it doesn't start out good, but it ends spectacularly with a lot of things failing. And, the funny part about it is they've had such a stranglehold. When you look at, the central banks and the whole fact of the sovereignty of a country is always compromised because you've got this outside entity. Like, for example, let's take the Fed. Does since 1913, we can't audit them. I mean, come on, seriously? I mean, we're talking over 100 years, not one audit. There's a lot of speculation about what's going on, but let's see what that balance sheet really looks like. And let's see where that money really went. You know what really solves those issues? Blockchain. Why? Because that is going to be transparent. You start putting all that stuff together. I think that's the other big fear that a lot of these central bankers are running from is, they're talking about blockchain and CBDCs. Well, it's not a decentralized asset. It doesn't have anything to do with blockchain. It's just a digital form of money. And guess what? I can look at my phone right now and see a number that if there is a bank rush tomorrow, we can't take all the fiat. The fiat supply doesn't exist, right? So to me, the whole thing is it's gaming the system. If you're not going to go blockchain, if you're not going to be decentralized, then what's the point? Another, you call it whatever you want, magic,
You'll
fairy
be made
dust.
irrelevant. You'll
Yeah.
just be made irrelevant is how it's going to go.
That's exactly how it's going to go. And that's the first thing that's going to happen is the Fed is going to get crushed and the central banks will start falling apart. And this is where they're trying to prop it up. You see what they're trying to do over in Europe right now, right? How they keep floating these little ideas out there. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a euro, a digital euro, and it's going to be this, and that. At the end of the day, so what if, I mean, how often do you use fiat anymore? It's like I go to get, I go somewhere and I have to tip somebody. Get their Venmo, man. It's like, hey, boop, boop. You scan their Venmo thing. They got the little placard there. It's like, hey, got their picture on it. You scan it, you tip them. There's no cash taking place. And and right now it's on a card. And you see Visa is making some, Visa and MasterCard are doing the battle because they also see that they are going away, at least the way they operate today. There's not going to be a card. There's going to be something on your phone, and who do you think's making the better play in that? You think standing up is Visa, Amex, or MasterCard? Who do you think's really excelling right now?
I think Visa's probably got the biggest campaign as far as Visa Direct, all the things they were doing with MoneyGram, American Amex, both of them are working with Ripple. So
they just bought Currency Cloud, which is a Currency Cloud, which was a Ripple partner as well. Out of Australia, they just bought them. So
okay, again, how relevant is all this going to be when I can go to dinner and I can buy my dinner with a private smart contract with a privacy token that nobody can see how much I have, that nobody knows I spent it, that nobody knows how much the other person got or how much they have, and they can then take that and pay their rent.
Yeah.
And buy groceries or whatever. Like, what relevance does the whole tax apparatus, like they're done at that point. And heading into this crash, this hyperinflation, stagflation, whatever we end up with, like, how do they, I question, how do they come out of that swinging? I mean, like, I don't doubt that they will, that they're going to come up with some kind of plan to stay relevant, and it might work for some period of time, but I think this whole thing is done. And I hope so anyway, because I think what's waiting on the other side is a freer and more prosperous world where people get along and are not being manipulated and propagandized by these elites with an agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one of the key things you want to notice, what always happens is you try to divide people. That's your first sign. It's like red flag, and again, it's been used over and over again, but this is something that they often try to do. It's like, well, wait a minute, man. I'm cool with my neighbors. We're all cool together. I live in South Florida. We're in a diverse environment, and there's none of that going on. But again, it's like that whole thing with propaganda. It's like, no. You see, you guys don't like each other, and you got differences, and you're going to fight over it. No, that's not really what's happening on the ground, And then, when you start seeing, this is the part that crushes me. You see the White House, picture the White House. You see every Cuba flag, people holding signs up, and they're protesting right out there in front of the White House. I see one American flag, and I'm like, the Cuban people who lived through communism, who just fought tooth and nail and understand, and they taught the next generation, and that next generation's teaching that next generation. And then you have the uneducated people who think, it's going to be great. We're going to have everything we need. Everything's going to be fun. We're going to be happy. It's going to be 2030 and I don't own anything. And I'm going to be so happy about it. It's going to be just a joy. And you see that,
Ashandi Roy, she's got a quote where she says, flags are bits of colored cloth first used to shrink wrap the brains of the soldiers and then used as burial shrouds to bury the dead when they return. Something along those lines, where we're propagandized through these schools to buy into this whole idea of nationality or nationalism, and that it turns people against one another. That's how government is designed. It's really to put people against each other and let them fight amongst themselves while you pull the strings on both sides, while government pulls the strings on both sides. And I think people are hopefully waking up to that paradigm. And for the first time in history, we now have alternatives. We have options that are improving day by day. And that's positive to me.
Yeah, I agree. And then all of a sudden, a new flood of articles is hitting out there. It's like, Bitcoin's a scam. Should we get rid of cryptocurrency altogether? Jeff and I covered a story on that last night. It was in The Hill, right? A reputable outlet, right? So it's like they get the orders, they start, it has to be eliminated. Why do we even use it? It's pathetic. I'm like, look, the first new asset class in over 400 years, you're not going to kill this, man. It's not going away. If anything, it's gonna splinter into 4 billion pieces, and you're not going to be, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. And I think that's really the realization that people are starting to learn, is like, that's not going to happen. Although, you know, the last ones to know, there's always the last one to know, and that's the person that's holding the bag at the end. And I have a feeling that that is going to be the banks, the central bankers. They're not going to, they kind of see it's coming, but well, what the hell? We've had the rain for like, what, it's been 800 years, 1,000 years. You know,
I think they're going to stick people with it. You know, they're not going to help their customers. They're going to leave them holding the bag in a lot of cases. I mean, the banks are going to get hosed and see massive reductions and eliminations and layoffs and all these things as DeFi continues to take over.
Also, that the DAOs, the autonomous organizations, those what you were talking about a little bit. So you start to really see that is going to gain a lot of traction as well. And I've seen different management styles tried, but unfortunately, the problem with them is they're not truly decentralized, and that's where their death was. And I actually had a buddy had a good startup, and they're doing really well, but they tried this, like, you know, there's really nobody in charge, and there's a inside of a centralized organization where you guys are all in charge and destroying it together, versus something where, and I think that coupled with DeFi, you know, we've essentially become the bank. All the stuff that the bankers are doing, being able to loan money cheap, get their hands on anything they want, right here. It's going to happen right here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I got a buddy who
banking. And
I have a buddy who
we are the board of directors on the bank now. If you're a governance token holder or staking assets and so forth, you are supplanting the function of the bank. Now, granted, today it's so people can go out and speculate and do all this crazy shit, but down the road it will be so people can buy a house or, you know, whatever else. And that's where it's going, and these people aren't going to really be relevant.
Well, that's where people are waking up to the system of debt doesn't really work. The central banks, you borrow $1, now you have to borrow the next dollar to pay the interest on the first dollar. And it's just it's a debt-ridden system, and it's a failed system. And I'm shocked that we got so much more time on it since the reset with Nixon. But anyway, any closing statements? We could probably drone out all night. I want to be sensitive to your time, because this is a great conversation, man. I was like just starting to get into it. But thank you for coming on, Sam. Sure. I really appreciate it. It's OG week. We have Jungle calling in tomorrow, and then on Wednesday we got Rob Cash on the set. You know, who is one of the early.
Followed him. Yeah, I've been disconnected with him since my other account's locked because of the tweet that I'm waiting for them to check the appeal. You know, anytime now, it's like 3 months.
Yeah, they're on it. Don't worry, Sam.
But I just refound right on that.
Yeah, so Rob Cash will be on here on Wednesday night, and just thought it'd be kind of cool, to bring some, thought diversification on here and talk about some things, get your opinion on it, because I enjoy your stream. I like to watch you on Twitch, and of course, I gobble up. So you are in my hidden Bears and Riddlers Twitter. I have a Twitter group. What do you call it? Channel? What are these called? List, Twitter list.
Yeah.
And you're in my Bears and Riddlers. So I have all kinds of cool people in there and stuff going on, and it's like. So it's like I just go in there to digest it all, and get it all. Then, I've got some of my normal ones too, the crypto channels and the other stuff that's going on. But that's my favorite one, because there's all kinds of You know, it's like keeping up on stuff. You only need to follow probably about maybe 15 or 20 key people, and you can kind of get a good barometer on what's happening out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I might be a little teaser, might be starting a show where we talk DeFi with a couple friends. So
that would be fun. That
I listen to on the topic, that do a lot of research in the space and find some of these obscure projects and so forth. So yeah, I think that would be good. And I think they both understand some of the things that we've talked about with, you know, why one project is better than the other, because they'll look at it in terms of which one is more decentralized and censorship resistant and that sort of thing. So, and I think that's what's really at stake here. And that's what's going to determine the winners and losers, because the government's going to go after and attack anybody that they can. And it's the ones who can resist those attacks that will be, I think, the long-term winners.
Nice. Well said on the way out. Listen, everybody, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. As you guys know, we broadcast 6 days a week, Sunday through Thursday, 8 to 9. And then Jeff is back on Saturday mornings, when I'm usually up around doing other things from 8 to 9. You'll see him rant all things geopolitical. That's always fun. It's actually more fun for me to hang out in the chat. And you know, Sam, I want to thank you for being here. Hang out too, because once we get through the close here, and we'll move it along. But guys, thank you for showing up. Guys, come back tomorrow. We got Jungle calling in. He's going to come in, give us some of his thoughts, and then Rob Cash on Wednesday and Thursday is going to be a free for all. But Jeff will be back tomorrow. I know he had some meetings he forgot about, and that's all I have. So, guys, anything else, Sam?
That's it.
Then, guys, we will see you on the next one. Hang out here, Sam.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.